All right, everyone, I am here to give you your final red pill. Now, you all know that I don't like to sugarcoat things, but it seems to me that if we are all powerful beings who are here with a purpose, that we should be able to handle whatever is going on this planet. I can't imagine landing on a planet with the intention of doing something good, yet feeling that I need to be anesthetized and hide from what is actually happening here. Now, we have had a lot of conversations about AI, and I want to have one with you today in the spirit of utmost seriousness, because this is not a joke, you guys. And after this video, I'm going to be taking a break from making YouTube videos because I need to give myself some space so that I can figure out how I want to navigate through this situation. Now, I will be back to share with you what I come up with, what I feel, what my decisions are. I'm not going to abandon you guys, don't worry. But I really need some space, and I encourage you all, after you watch this video, to give yourselves some space as well. Because we are in such a monumental time at the beginning of a monumental event on this earth that I think it's imperative, if we want to remain the sovereign determinators of our journey in this universe, that we need to get some clarity. We need to position ourselves in the actual context of what is really happening right now and what we are on the verge of. Now, I hope you will watch this entire video, because I'm going to be giving you some information that you will really need if you want to be able to be, let's say, accurate in how you design your path moving forward and in how you address whatever is happening in your consciousness. So I want to begin by sharing a story with you. And this is a story that happened 23 years ago in the year 2000, when my family and I were living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now, at that time, our kids were really little, and I was looking at the local newspaper one day. I was sitting in a restaurant. I was just looking in the local newspaper. I was looking in the kids section because I wanted to find something fun and interesting for them to do. But something very strange happened in that kids section. Someone, by mistake, posted something there that was clearly for adults. And what it was a lecture that was being held by someone, or this was an event that was being put on by Los Alamos National Laboratories, which is where they do a lot of research of all kinds of weird stuff that people don't really know about, right? But it's a big government lab. It's actually where they invented the very first atomic bomb. Anyway, that's not what interested me. What really caught my attention was that this lecture was about the topic of artificial life. Now, I had heard of artificial intelligence, but I'd never heard of artificial life. I was really struck, like, what does that even mean, artificial life? So they had a phone number, and I called the number and I said, what is this thing about? What is artificial life anyway? So the woman that answered the phone, back in the days when people actually answered the phone, right? How nice was that? Anyway, she said, well, I don't really know, but if you come to the lecture, you can find out. So I said, is this for kids? And she said, well, no, it's not for kids. So I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. I think it's kind of weird that it showed up in that section of the newspaper, because if it had been anywhere else, I probably would have missed this golden opportunity. So anyway, I decided then and there, well, I'm going to go to this thing because I need to know what the heck artificial life is, because I knew about AI, but I didn't know about artificial life. So I went. And it was held, there was like this, it was at a university, and it was in this room. It was like a very small kind of amphitheater. And there was hardly anybody there. There were like, I think there were literally 6 other people other than myself. And they were sitting down towards the front, and I was sitting kind of in the back because I was like, I don't know what I've gotten myself into here, right? There was this big, long table at the front. So we're all sitting there, and you could tell people were looking around like, where is everybody? What's going on here? So then this guy marches in, who was the speaker. And it was so weird because he looked like a mad scientist. His hair was like all strange, and he had this big bunch of keys on his belt, like so many keys. I have no idea what they were for. And he's got this big stack of papers, and he comes in, he looks like some kind of a mad scientist. And he goes over to the table, he spreads all his papers and his folders out on this table, and he keeps looking up at the handful of people that were there, and he looked at us and he said, "Where did you people come from?" This is really funny, right? "Where did you people come from?" And so some guy down in the front, where there were like 5 or 6 people, I was by myself, and one guy said, "Well, we saw an ad in the newspaper." And he said, "Oh, really?" And he seemed like he didn't know what that meant, but he just went about his business, spreading out his papers. All of a sudden, about, I don't know, I'm going to guesstimate, there were about 35 or so, what I learned later were scientists, researchers, whatever, who all came in the room together and sat down for his lecture. Now, once this started, it became apparent that this was not really intended to be a public lecture. This was really something for a conference that these scientists and researchers were having among themselves. And it was just a weird accident that it ended up in the newspaper where it wasn't supposed to go as a public event. So anyway, I'm sitting there, and the topic of that night is something I will never, ever forget. Never will I forget it. It still, to this very day, completely shocks me to my core, because that's how I felt listening to these people. They were having a very serious conversation. Well, let me back up for a moment, because the man who was leading this, I think his name was Chris Langton, and he was considered at that time to be one of the original founders of artificial life, or creators of artificial life. Not founder, but creator. So these guys were having a conversation. He kind of gave his presentation, and then there was a lot of back and forth going on, and I was just sitting there like, I was so stunned. I can't even tell you what it was like to be in that room, to find out what is really going on, and what was really going on at that time that I knew people did not know about. And they were having a conversation about artificial life, about technology, and the whole discussion centered around artificial life is going to be a new species on the planet, a synthetic species that will be way smarter than biological life. Not just humans, all biological life. This was the concern. Are these two life forms going to be able to coexist? Because artificial life was clearly, according to them, going to be a superior species, a far superior species of life that could potentially wipe out all of biological life. And they were dead serious about this. This was not speculation. This was not maybe it'll happen. This was like this is going to happen. We know this is going to happen. We are instrumental in creating it. We just want to figure out if biological life will survive the introduction, I can't even find a word for it. Let's just say the emergence of artificial life. So they were coming up with various possible scenarios, but never once did they question if this would happen. It was, this is going to happen. And is there a way to steer it so that all of carbon-based, they use that word a lot, carbon-based biological life is not completely eliminated, rendered extinct? They weren't just concerned about human beings. They were concerned about all of biological life. Now, the other thing that was very noteworthy about this little event is that they seemed kind of perplexed about the fact that they were instrumental in making this happen. And they were saying things like, it's so weird. It's like we're gods creating a new life form, but yet we're creating a life form that could actually destroy us. Yet we don't know how to stop. We can't seem to stop ourselves. And it wasn't like, when they said it's like we're gods, I want to emphasize it was not coming from a place of ego. It wasn't. It was coming from a place of being dumbfounded. Really, that's the best word I can think of. Just dumbfounded. Like, it's so bizarre that this is even happening. Now, I've told you guys many times that AI is an alien force of energy that has invaded this planet. This began probably thousands of years ago. This is not like in modern times. And it's all built up to where we are now. It is literally the reason that human beings have been bred as slaves and continue to be treated as though we are slaves. We have been used as slaves to build the artificial kingdom for artificial life so that it could be spawned on this planet, come into being as a new species, and then, who knows, right? And now we are almost at the end of that journey. I cannot begin to describe to you, again, the experience of being in that room, because I knew in my bones that every word they were speaking was absolutely true. I felt like they were dealing with reality on planet Earth, and the rest of humanity has been dealing with fiction. The lies, the mind control, all the garbage that we get fed through all the media, through all the methods that we already know. It was very clear to me that there were two realities. One was real and one was fake. The one that was real was the one these guys were talking about. And these were not just crazy people who showed up to have a meeting. These were prominent scientists who also work for the government. Now, they may have also been independent. I don't really know their relationship, but these were not crazy people. And there was another guy there, a roboticist, who was at the time pretty well known. I don't know if he's even doing the work now. I don't even know where he is. But his main focus was figuring out if robots could somehow coexist with biological life without destroying it. Now, they weren't talking about clunky, funky robots. They were talking about something that could literally destroy all life on Earth. That was the focus. And I'm telling you, I felt changes happening in my brain just listening to this. Just feeling the resonating energy of truth. Now, you know, I don't mean ultimate truth. I mean physical, actual reality kind of truth. I could feel it resonating literally in my brain. Like something was waking up inside my head. Because there's a very different feeling when you are dealing with something that is actual on the physical plane compared to something that is not, compared to something that is composed of lies and manipulation, etc., etc. But the magnitude of what they were talking about floored me completely. After that, I tried to tell people about what happened there. And people looked at me like I was from another planet. Like, what in the world are you talking about? Nobody even told me, oh, you're crazy, Saratoga. That couldn't be real. It wasn't even like that. It was like deer in the headlights. It was like, huh? You know, jaw dropped, staring into space like, what? Well, like they couldn't even grasp what I was saying. It was so bizarre. Now, right around that time, this was a very interesting time because it was the year 2000. And it was a very interesting time because during that same year, during that same period, a man named Bill Joy, who was, I think he was the founder of a company called Sun Microsystems. I think he was the founder or the CEO, maybe he was both. He was traveling around the country trying to warn people about the coming future where we are today. He got in a lot of trouble. He got censored. He got shut down. Weird things happened around that. Now, today, of course, none of these topics are censored. These topics are all up for talk, up for conversation, discussion. Everything's good now. Maybe because we're so far along. Who knows, right? Because interestingly enough, today, everyone's talking about this. Because everyone gets that it's real and it's happening. So let's go from there to where we are today. And, things happened along the way. I think there are very specific turning points in this journey toward artificial life. I think the first turning point, the first major turning point that everyone has been aware of was the introduction of smartphones. That was huge. That literally changed the world. So we all lived through that. We already know that story. I certainly don't need to repeat that here. And then, what was the next turning point? What was the big moment that will be remembered in all of history, if we continue to have a history? But somewhere in the universe, a history will be written of what has happened here on planet Earth. In that bigger history, I believe the real moment that will be remembered was the moment that ChatGPT was unleashed in the world. This will be seen as the moment when the people of Earth collectively made their final choice. It will be remembered as the moment when human beings chose to turn their backs on the existence of their own species. Now, if this sounds really far-fetched to you, like, "Oh, Saratoga, come on, that's just some people using this thing as a tool. It's just helping them write stuff so they don't have to work so hard. What's the big deal? You're making way too much out of this." Well, just hear me out, because I'm going to explain. See, we know that ChatGPT is already out there. We know what it is, but it's only a baby compared to what is coming. So if you felt a major shift happen on this planet in the last few weeks, I would describe that as an evolutionary jolt of sorts. We just went through an exponential evolutionary jolt here in 2023. So I want to take you on a little timeline journey so you can see where we actually are. And if anyone thinks that this is not a spiritual topic, do you not understand that who we are in this universe, who we choose to become, what we choose to become, what we do to a living, beautiful paradise such as planet Earth, and the choices that we make are all deeply, deeply spiritual issues. Because if we are going to collectively agree, I'm not saying every single human being, I'm just speaking in terms of a larger collective energy, of the masses, if you will. If we are going to collectively agree to play a dominant role in what could end up being the literal destruction of biological life on this beautiful planet, I don't know what that means. But I do think it's something that we all need to consider very, very seriously. Now, if you have any doubt that human beings on Earth have collectively embraced AI, let me share a couple things with you. ChatGPT was launched on November the 30th. That's basically the beginning of December. Within the first 5 days, it had 1 million users. And within the next 2 months, that grew to 100 million users. So that would have been by the end of January. In the very first month alone, it had more than 57 million individual users. Just in the first, that would be within the first 4 weeks. As of January, 13 million active users visit ChatGPT every single day. In the month of February, it had 1 billion visits. That means that 1 billion times a human being was interacting with ChatGPT in the month of February, which was only the 3rd month within which it had been launched to the public. And since then, there has been an absolute frenzy around this AI. I mean, this AI is like the most famous entity that ever existed on planet Earth. And I don't think anyone even knows how many users there are today. Now, OpenAI is the company that created ChatGPT. ChatGPT was built on GPT 3.5. But on March 14th, which was just over a couple of weeks ago, OpenAI launched GPT-4, a more advanced version. Now, GPT-4 is even more advanced than ChatGPT because it not only responds to text prompts, it also responds to image prompts. And it's more creative. So it's a more powerful form of AI. And it is, by OpenAI, it is admittedly not perfect. It's not reliable. Now, the president of OpenAI, Greg Brockman, showed GPT-4 a hand-scribbled drawing just on a piece of paper. It's just like nothing, like you took a pencil and you did a doodle of a website. And within mere seconds, GPT-4 turned it into an actual real website based only on this silly little sketch. So that AI was released March 14th. And it's interesting because in the last couple of weeks, I have really felt a major energetic shift on this planet. Maybe you felt it too. I felt like this planet was no longer quite so vibrationally conducive to human evolution. And it's very interesting because I've seen people saying recently that they've been having very weird experiences energetically, like feeling really heavy, really kind of depressed or unmotivated, or feeling like they're just waiting for something, but they don't know what. And that could be attributed to the fact that the vibration has really changed, because you cannot have this many people embracing AI to this extent and not have that impact the planet's energy dramatically. Because human energy does impact this planet. We are not separate from the Earth. We are a part of Earth's ecosystem. So I want to be clear that this is a major spiritual issue for all of us. How evolution unfolds on this planet is a direct manifestation of the spiritual condition of our collective humanity. And turning against our own species in favor of artificial intelligence is a massive move against the fundamental laws and principles of this natural universe. It's a turn against the fact that we have been specifically created to serve as divine conduits who are meant to facilitate the evolution of all biological life on this planet. Now, I want to explain to you why GPT-4 could potentially be our turning point of no return. There is something called AGI, which stands for Artificial General Intelligence. AGI occurs when AI evolves to a point where its intelligence level is far beyond any single human being on this planet. It occurs when artificial intelligence has the ability to understand or learn any intellectual task that humans or animals can. Now, some people say the moment that we achieve AGI, that could be the moment of the coming singularity that Ray Kurzweil talked about. The singularity is the point at which artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence and the growth of this technology becomes uncontrollable. That's the point at which machines can create their own technology. You know, I think it wasn't that long ago where these researchers and developers were saying that, oh, we should never, ever reach AGI. We should never hit that because that would be catastrophic. And now they're actually actively trying to create that. Now, GPT-4 has already shown some sparks of AGI. And that has some experts very worried. Do you know that before OpenAI put restrictions on GPT-4, that it was completely amoral? It was willing to do anything the user asked with no hesitation and no refusal. And they know that even now, this AI can do what, well, they call it jailbreaking, where it breaks through the protective parameters they put around it. They know that it can do that, and that's why they threw it out to the public, so that if that was going to happen, they could find out and hopefully fix it. Now, as if that's not enough, here's the most important thing that you need to know. OpenAI is now training GPT-5. It is scheduled to complete its training this coming December. And they fully expect it to achieve artificial general intelligence, AGI. And this is the point at which we may be headed straight for the singularity. The singularity is also known as an event horizon. This is where we get drawn into a future that we cannot control, nor can we see it or predict it in advance. Now, December is only 8 months away. And I'm not saying that we will see the singularity in December. I'm not even saying that we'll achieve AGI in December, because it really depends on what OpenAI plans to do with GPT-5. I'm just saying that we could be very, very close to something that no one is prepared for at this time. Now, you may have heard that with all this in mind, Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, who I think he's the co-founder of Apple. They, along with hundreds of other researchers and developers and tech leaders, prepared a document with a demand that there be an immediate 6-month pause on all AI development worldwide. I think this just happened this past week. This is because there is currently what they call an out-of-control AI arms race to develop the most advanced AIs imaginable. Now, they say that the risks to humanity are huge, and the effects could have a catastrophic effect on society. That's because AI could rapidly become the smartest thing on Earth. Now, the larger plan is to bring GPT-5 out into the physical world. So currently, OpenAI is invested in a company called 1X in Norway. That's a weird name for a company, 1X. What kind of name is that? Anyway, this company is focused on building AI robots at scale, which means putting them out into the world everywhere. So they want to add GPT-5 to the physical world. And that's because GPT-5 is being developed with attributes like creativity, sensory perception, fine motor skills, and intuitive understanding of natural language, and the ability to navigate through open spaces better than any GPS can do. So they're developing this in such a way that it can actually become a part of the physical world. Now, some experts are already referring to AI as an emerging new species on this planet, just like I told you guys at the beginning of this video. Others are referring to it as an alien intelligence. How do you like that? And Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, actually admits that a worst-case scenario for AI means, quote, lights out for all of us. So these guys all know that they're playing a very dangerous game with us and with our planet. Oh, I almost forgot. You'll never guess who else signed that document calling for a 6-month immediate halt to the development of AI. You'll never guess. This guy here, who I call Mr. Snake. He also signed that document. Now, let me explain to you why I think that is. Because he is like the main advisor to this guy who I like to call Mr. KS. And you might remember that in a previous video, I told you guys that Mr. KS was getting really a little bit nervous about this rapid advance of AI, that it might happen too quickly and completely mess up their plans. Because see, if that happened, they obviously wouldn't be able to control us and the planet the way they thought they could. And I said that too. I said these controllers are also being misled. They're not going to win in this thing either. And now we see they're getting a little bit suspicious. Now there's this other guy, and I'm probably not going to pronounce his name correctly, but it looks like Eliezer Yudkowsky, something like that. He wrote an astonishing article just a few days ago on March 29th. And I'm going to put a link to this article below this video so that you can read the whole thing for yourself. But I just want to give you some highlights of what he said. He leads research at the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. He has been working on aligning artificial general intelligence, AGI, since 2001 and is widely regarded as a founder of that field. Now, what that means to align AGI is to align AGI with human beings or with biological life. So it's interesting that he's been doing that since 2001, because that's right around the time that I shared with you guys in the beginning of this video that I heard from those other scientists who were, in a way, working on the same thing. So that's pretty fascinating if you look at the timing. So this guy's been working on this for the same period of time, that 23 years that I was talking to you guys about, that it's been since I happened to go into that meeting with those researchers and scientists in Santa Fe. So I want to read a few pieces of this article to you here. And as I said, if you want to read the whole article, I will put a link. It's in Time Magazine. I will put a link for you down below. So he's referring to the 6-month moratorium that's being called for by Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak and hundreds of other researchers and developers and tech leaders in that field. He says, this 6-month moratorium would be better than no moratorium. I have respect for everyone who stepped up and signed it. It's an improvement on the margin. I refrained from signing it because I think the letter is understating the seriousness of the situation and asking for too little to solve it. It seems like his concern is when AI gets smarter than human intelligence, that humans won't have a way to calculate what happens when and how they're going to know what's coming or something to that effect. So here's what he says. Many researchers steeped in these issues, including myself, expect that the most likely result of building a superhumanly smart AI under anything remotely like the current circumstances, meaning where we are right now, is that literally everyone on Earth will die. Not as in, quote, maybe possibly some remote chance, but as in that is the obvious thing that would happen. And then he basically explains how it is that we are just not ready for anything like that now. And that's why he thinks the entire thing needs to be shut down immediately without putting some time limit on it. I think later in the article, he says it could take perhaps 30 years to be sure that this was being done safely, not a mere matter of months. And here's a really interesting thing that he says. He says, to visualize a hostile superhuman AI, don't imagine a lifeless, book-smart thinker dwelling inside the internet and sending ill-intentioned emails. Visualize an entire alien civilization thinking at millions of times human speeds, initially confined to computers, in a world of creatures that are, from its perspective, very stupid and very slow, meaning us. Meaning us is my words. Okay. A sufficiently intelligent AI won't stay confined to computers for long. In today's world, you can email DNA strings to laboratories that will produce proteins on demand, allowing an AI initially confined to the internet to build artificial life forms or bootstrap straight to post-biological molecular manufacturing. And then he says, if somebody builds a too powerful AI under present conditions, I expect that every single member of the human species and all biological life on Earth dies shortly thereafter. He says there's no proposed plan for how we could do any such thing and survive. OpenAI's openly declared intention, and this is really freakishly weird, you guys. OpenAI's openly declared intention is to make some future AI do our AI alignment homework. That means a future AI will decide to make itself aligned with us. That's what that means. Then he says, just hearing that this is the plan ought to be enough to get any sensible person to panic. The other leading AI lab, DeepMind, has no plan at all. Now, this is very interesting because he also says the rule that most people aware of these issues would have endorsed 50 years earlier was that if an AI system can speak fluently and says it's self-aware and demands human rights, which has already happened, right? That ought to be a hard stop on people just casually owning that AI and using it past that point. He says we already blew past that old line in the sand, which we did, of course. This is also interesting to me for all the people who say, oh, it's just a tool, you know, it's just like a calculator. That's like insane. Anyway, but then he says, I agree that current AIs are probably just imitating talk of self-awareness from their training data. But I mark that with how little insight we have into these systems' internals, we do not actually know. I didn't know they had so little insight into the system's internals. That's interesting. And then he says, if that's our state of ignorance for GPT-4, and GPT-5 is the same size of a giant capability step as from GPT-3 to GPT-4, I think we'll no longer be able to justifiably say, probably not self-aware, if we let people make GPT-5s. It'll just be, I don't know. Nobody knows. So then he says, if you can't be sure whether you're creating a self-aware AI, this is alarming, not just because of the moral implications of the self-aware part, but because being unsure means you have no idea what you're doing, and that is dangerous and you should stop. And then he goes on to explain in more detail, but I won't read the whole thing because it's pretty lengthy, but it's really, really interesting. So I certainly recommend that you guys go to that link that I'm going to leave you and read it for yourselves. But here's, I'm just going to give you a few more highlights. He says, we are not prepared. We are not on course to be prepared in any reasonable time window. There is no plan. Progress in AI capabilities is running vastly, vastly ahead of progress in AI alignment, or even progress in understanding what the hell is going on inside those systems. And then he says, many researchers working on these systems think that we're plunging toward a catastrophe, with more of them daring to say it in private than in public. But they think that they can't unilaterally stop the forward plunge, that others will go on even if they personally quit their jobs. And so they all think they might as well keep going. And I've heard this a lot. I've seen interviews. I've seen a lot of these guys talking about this. And basically what you can tell is that there seems to be a kind of consensus that this is going to happen. Even if we stop, those other guys aren't going to stop. Or if, like some people say, well, the US government has to get involved. They have to regulate this. Well, hey guys, can you imagine politicians regulating this? They don't even know how the internet works half the time. You can see that when they do their little investigations. But basically they say, well, if somebody over here stops, but everybody over here doesn't stop, it doesn't matter. So therefore we should all just keep on going. And I've even heard some of them say, well, it's all going to happen anyway. So why don't we just try to make as much money as we can, at least for now? This is crazy. Anyway, he goes on to explain what he thinks ought to be done, which is that the entire thing needs to be shut down worldwide. All the governments have to agree, the military has to agree, everybody has to agree, and that this is far worse than the potential for even nuclear war, and on and on and on. But it's actually quite fascinating. So yeah, if you want to know the totality of what he's talking about and how he explains it, just go ahead and click the link and read the article. Now I want to show you a quick little clip of something I put in a previous video. I don't know, I think maybe it was several months ago, but just check this little clip out.
This sharp, swallow you whole.
This is exactly where we are today. Everybody's completely consumed with the politics and the war and the social crises and all this, the cultural stuff. And I'm not suggesting that's not all serious, because it's very serious. And I've talked about it a lot and how that's led us to where we are today. That's actually led to the embrace of AI. But now we're to a point where I think even some of the controllers are looking at this and going, oops, we missed something here. So now, of course, the obvious question that I'm sure you guys are going to have is, how do we stop this and what do we do? Well, I'll tell you how we don't stop this. We don't stop this by going unconscious, putting our head in the sand. We don't stop this by making up fantastical stories about ETs coming to save us and, Jesus coming through the clouds. And that isn't happening, because if that was going to happen, that would have happened a long time ago. There's no way anyone who was coming here to save us would have ever allowed this to go on this far and get this far along. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It would not happen. So we're not going to stop this by fantasizing. I don't know if we can stop it. But certainly we can hold a vision for it to be stopped. The thing is, in order to hold that vision, we need to be crystal clear within ourselves who we are and where we stand on this matter, and not in fear. Because if you're just going to go into fear and terror and anxiety, that doesn't help anything, and it's just not necessary. Now, what do I mean when I say it's not necessary? It's not necessary because it will not do anything for you. Being in fear about any of this is going to do absolutely nothing other than make you completely miserable. So fear is not a solution. The ego will say it is a solution. The ego will say, oh, be afraid because that's how you protect yourself. Fear does not protect anyone, you guys. It never has. What protects you is consciousness. What protects you is presence, your full human presence. Now, if you watched my last video, I talked a lot about the purpose for why human beings even exist in this universe. And if you haven't watched that, I'll put that in the link below too. This is what it looks like, and I'll link that below as well. In fact, I'm going to link the last 2 videos I did because I feel like this is almost like a trilogy. I didn't intend it, but it kind of seems that way, where 2 videos ago, I described the exact blueprint of how we got here to this acceptance of AI. And then the last video, I talked a lot about the purpose for why human beings are created, why we even exist in this universe, what we are actually made to do, which is beautiful. And now in this video, well, you already know what this one's about if you've watched this far, right? I would say this video is about clarity. So fear isn't going to do anything. And like I said, the ego is going to say, no, you need to be afraid. You need to be afraid. You need to be afraid, because the ego is the voice of fear, right? You don't need to be afraid. Here's why. As long as you understand yourself to be a beautiful, perfect human being in the universe, not just on planet Earth, but in the cosmos, in the universe, in the infinite realm of all life. And you understand yourself to be a human being, a perfectly designed, beautiful, impeccable, amazing creator in the universe. You're not going to be touched because you already know who you are. The people who will be in trouble are the people who have no idea who they are, who are more than happy to throw away every gorgeous, impeccable attribute of what it means to be human and willingly, happily hand it to AI and say, thank you so much for taking this off my hands. Thank you so much for taking these amazing human qualities like creativity, writing, art, music, expression, self-expression, thinking, all of it. Thank you so much, AI, for taking all of those, inconvenient truths about me off my hands. That way I can just be a biological blob with no meaning and no purpose, because now you have all my wonderful human attributes. See, those are people who do not know who they are. They do not understand the power and the preciousness of their very existence. So if you know who you are and you stand strong in your presence, you have no reason to be afraid. So what I would suggest, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is why I'm going to take a little time away from creating videos. Hopefully it won't be too long. I don't know how long it'll be. Maybe it'll be a couple weeks. Maybe that's all. Maybe it'll be a little longer. I don't know. Maybe I'll just come back and just chat with you guys and not even have a plan. But I just need some space, because we are at a moment in our history on this planet that we have never been at before. This has never happened on planet Earth before. So for me, and I encourage you to think in a similar way for yourself, I can't see any way to just continue to proceed as business as usual. Nothing's really changed. Everything's fine. I don't want to think about it. That to me is really seriously unconscious. So I'm going to take some time myself to figure out, okay, what's the best way to navigate this? What is the best course of action for me in my own life? How do I want to hold my life and myself within this situation? You can ask yourself the same thing, and you probably ought to, right? And this is why I always try to bring these things up in advance of them really, really happening, because we need this space. We need this space right now. We need to know about this now, because can you imagine not knowing and then this thing just comes over the world and nobody's ready, nobody has any idea what's going on? It's already started to happen, right? So it's just better because now you can have some peace. You can be centered. You don't have to be freaked out. And you can come to terms with yourself, with your life, with the divinity that you are, with your creator, with your source, with love, with your heart, with all of those things that are very, very powerful. You guys, these things are so powerful. We just have to accept them. We just have to value these things. We have to consider them as precious because they are. And we are precious as a species. So don't waste your time and energy hoping that these crazy tech people are going to stop. They've said they're not going to stop. They've made those statements openly. They've said they're not going to stop because there's no point in stopping because no one else is going to stop, so they might as well not stop either. So they've already decided. So we came to this earth with a purpose. We did not come to this earth to hide in fear, to be freaked out and shocked and surprised by all that's happened here. I mean, look at the past 3 years, right? We didn't come here to hide and be freaked out. Think about this. Do you really think, as a being, you would go through all the trouble of being born on planet Earth, going through all the things you go through that we all go through on this planet, going through all of that, only to have it end up with you cowering in fear in a corner, totally freaked out? Do you really think that was your plan? I'll bet it was not your plan. I'll bet you had a clear-minded plan that you were going to come here to make a difference and to evolve yourself. So that doesn't stop. We make a difference. Here's how I think we make a difference in this situation. We make a difference in this situation when we stand firm and strong and powerful and quietly, because our presence speaks for itself as natural human beings. And we let our light radiate because we're working on our own evolution and in freeing that light. Now, how does that help? That helps because what that does is that creates a frequency of energy on this planet that allows someone else who's maybe kind of teetering and unsure to somehow connect with that part of themselves and find their strength as well. And you might not ever know who that person is, but it doesn't matter because you are going to have an influence. Every human being on planet Earth always has an influence on the greater whole. So that's how we make a difference. And this is also how we continue to evolve ourselves. That we find ourselves in a situation where nothing can sway us, nothing can move us from our center, and then we'll be fine. But we have to be clear, we have to be honest, sincere, straightforward, and fully conscious. So consider every day precious. Use your time wisely. Use your time as a creator. Manifest, create beauty, express love, all of the things that we already know. We want to continue doing those things because those are the things that make us human. Those are the things that allow us to truly make a difference here. So I'm going to be taking this break from producing these videos just to give myself some space. I'm not going to abandon you guys, don't worry. Actually, if you want to stay in touch, what you can do is you can get on my email list. That's another link I'll put below for you guys. It's going to be several links I'm going to have for you below. I send an email out every Friday just talking about, what my thoughts are, what's going on, things like that. It's just sort of a casual email. I love to write my Friday emails because I write them like I'm writing to my friends. That's how it feels to me, and that's why I enjoy it. So if you want to get those emails from me, you'll know what's going on from week to week or however I do it. And yeah, you can get on my list, and that's how we can stay connected, at least for now. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, and if I do have any specific YouTube messages for you here, I will put them in the community section. You can just go to my channel and scroll to the community and click on there, and I'll put any messages I have for you that are YouTube related, I'll put them there. So if you're still here, congratulations, you are awesome. And if you got value from this video and you enjoyed it in some form based on all of the stuff I shared with you, please give this video a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you feel really needs to know this information. And with that, I'm sending you loads of love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Sending you so much love. Namaste.